The day I caught my fiancé cheating 2 days before our wedding. So, I've told this story on Reddit a few times but figured this subreddit is the obvious place to get it out of my system. For reference, I'm now 31 but this happened in 2014 when I was 26 and my ex-fiancé was 25. Let's call her Barb. We met in college and dated for 3 years prior to our engagement with a wedding date booked by the 4th year. Neither of our parents are well off financially and she was attending grad school, so the financial responsibility fell on me, which totaled $20,000 that was paid in full 4 days prior to the wedding. Leading up to that nightmare of an evening, we had our typical mid-20s relationship issues with bouts of poor communication, excessive drinking on weekends, and an occasional fight over trivial bullshit. Aside from that, we had a great relationship and spent a ton of time together figuring out post-college life and planning for our future. As I said above, the wedding and reception venue cashed my check 4 days before the wedding and the contract stated this was non-refundable. Over 120 guests were confirmed, a couple dozen from out of state, tuxes and bridesmaid dresses were fitted, and paid, and everything was falling into place. Now let's get to the inevitable shitstorm of events that you're all interested in before I keep rambling. The night in question was a Friday evening in our new apartment that we moved into a few weeks prior, and we decided to have about a dozen friends over to pre-game and head out to the bars in town. Included in this group of friends was my buddy whom I've known since kindergarten, we'll call him Ricky. Barb and I had spent a lot of time with Ricky over the last 3 years and he was definitely one of her favorite, one of my pals, which is generally awesome when you're so gets along with people in your social circle. The night started at a local hookah lounge that was by-op, so by the time we left there, A15 of Jameson and 30 rack of Yingling were gone and everyone was buzzed. The next 3 hours were spent between 2-3 bars that resulted in the entire group evolving into a drunken, belligerent mess. Once the bars closed, most people went home with the exception of myself, Barb, Ricky, and another couple who came back to our apartment for a nightcap. Once back at our place, the couple only lasted another 20 minutes before calling it and making their way home, so I was left with Barb friggin' Ricky. Earlier in the night at the hookah bar, I noticed Barb checking her phone more than usual, and simultaneously Ricky checking his phone after she would lock the screen. I almost put 2 and 2 together, but why would I worry about them planning anything shady 2 days before I was supposed to marry this girl? Back at my house, I was fairly sober and noticed all the booze was gone, so I was contemplating picking up a couple of 6-packs from a local spot that stays open until 3 a.m. Barb and Ricky were definitely on the liquor and tanked, but there was no reason to suspect anything sketchy would occur if I ran out for 20 minutes. Once in my car and preparing to exit my apartment complex, I got a sinking feeling in my gut that something wasn't right, and it completely freaked me out. So, I called my best bud and he agreed to be picked up and join me on the beer run and accompany me back to the apartment. After grabbing some Bud Heavies and returning home, we walked up to the sliding glass door that led to my living room that had a sectional to the immediate right. We opened the door, took 2 steps inside the apartment, and my ex-fiancé was completely topless and mounted on Mr. Ricky, ducking tonsil deep down each other's throats. The amazing part of the situation was neither of them appeared to notice that my buddy and I were 10 feet away watching their sloppy, drunken escapades. After 7-10 seconds of attempting to comprehend the current situation, I lost it, dropped the booze, threw her backward off Ricky completely topless, and landed 2 hard right hooks to Ricky's eye and cheek while he was still laying on his back with the most terrified look on his face. To put things in perspective, I am 6', 220 pounds and have played hockey my entire life. He is 5'6", 140 pounds and a runner. Immediately following the assault with my fist, Ricky started snoring, didn't know this was a thing and was asleep for at least 5 minutes while I was losing my mind over the situation. Without thinking, I called her parents about 10 times until they woke up and demanded they come to pick up their cheating daughter immediately. Their house was only 5 minutes down the road, so they walked in shortly thereafter while I was laying into Barb about her unforgivable, disgusting decision. Her parents frantically walked into me screaming at Barb, Ricky assed out on the couch, and my buddy mediating the situation. The first thing I told everyone was the wedding was ducking off. I demanded the ring back and said I'd rather lose 20k than spend the rest of my life with a cheating BTCH. Her parents spent the next 20 minutes attempting to talk me out of it and occasionally defending Barb's actions, saying things like, why can't you forgive her, or isn't it too late to cancel the wedding? Meanwhile, Ricky woke up and the right side of his face had swollen to the size of a grapefruit and his left eye was completely shut. Kicking him out of the apartment was tough because he was too drunk to drive, so I called his brother that was 20 minutes away and spent that time laying into Barb, Ricky, and her parents. Surprisingly, I was able to stay level-headed enough to express my thoughts in such an extreme state of rage. The few times I've been this upset in the past, My brain felt like it was scrambled and I had a hard time condensing and forming my thoughts into logical statements. Not this time. By the time Ricky's brother picked him up and Barb's parents shuttled her home, I had systematically picked apart any objection, opinion, or plea for reconsideration expressed by everyone in the room. It felt really ducking great. I'm not going to pretend the following months were easy and everything worked out in my favor. 2 months later, the pharma company I worked at decided to lay off my entire division. I had racked up thousands in credit card debt to pay for the wedding. Unemployment haunted me for 5 months, and I was diagnosed with major depression. Life was ducked up for a few years and I wouldn't wish that on anybody. But now that I'm 31, things have settled down and I couldn't be happier. Thank you for letting me get this off my chest. Too long didn't read. I walked in on my ex-fiancé cheating on me with my good friend 2 days before our wedding, and it ducking sucked. I can't believe the parents tried to defend her. I think that's ridiculous. I hope you found someone better than her. Yeah. My buddy that walked in on them with me actually started to get quite defensive when he heard both parents trying to talk me out of it. He jumped in without hesitation and defended me. So that was pretty deep. I found someone about a year later whom I dated for the next 4 years, but she wound up being an emotionally verbally abusive workaholic who was severely disliked by my friends and family. I bailed on that relationship last June and haven't had any desire to re-enter the dating game the last 10 months. Wasting 8 years with 2 women is an exhausting experience. Happily single I shall remain. That's pretty amazing that anyone would try to defend that, much less her parents. What? That's a seriously bad situation. Bummer you were already cash deep in that. Better to find out now, I guess, but a few months earlier would have helped. Just realized I am replying to the wrong thread, but keep it real, dude. Good women are out there, but take some time. Man, well written. I would have Chuck Norris roundhouse kicked Ricky in his ducking dome. Glad you came out of it okay, fam. Thanks. At one point after he woke up as Elephant Man, he actually tried to drunkenly approach me and wrap his arm around my shoulders to apologize. That didn't go well either because I wound up throwing him on the ground and holding him there for a few minutes with my knee on his temple region, kind of like a dirty cop. Hopefully, that was humiliating enough to encourage Ricky to make better choices when hanging out with someone else's significant other. I wish there was some way for you to get some of the money from Barb or her family for the wedding. Did you consider reselling the engagement ring? I can't even imagine what going through something like that was like, especially when you think you're spending your life with someone. You're so strong for getting through all of that, and coming on top. Depression is a BTCH to go through, and I truly hope you are feeling happier now. You really never saw any red flags before that Friday night at the hookah bar? Never thought something was off before then? I've found with a lot of the people I have dated there have been very subtle things I have noticed that I didn't think were quite right, but I was too scared to bring it up, or if I did I was shut down. I received no compensation from her family to cover any wedding expenses, but they aren't exactly well off, so I wasn't expecting anything at all. The engagement ring was a tough one because although I paid about $1,700 for it a year prior, Barb managed to beat the ever-living shit out of it during that time. The ring looked like this link and she managed to crack the smaller diamond on the left and scratch up the white gold on the outside. I took it to 4 or 5 different jewelers for an appraisal and the best offer I received was $100, so I just accepted and used that money to buy tickets to see the Black Dahlia murder in Philly. Worth it. I am definitely much happier these days. Cognitive behavioral therapy was fantastic for a year in conjunction with Lexapro 20 Maleg that I still take just in case. Life circumstances improved drastically as well, so it's been a bumpy ride, but I am cruising along. The only red flag I saw previously happened about 6 months prior to the wedding, and in hindsight, I should have walked away instead of waiting. We all were out at the bar sitting around a large table drinking pitchers and chatting. I was on the opposite side of the table from Barb Ricky, who were sitting next to each other, but that was no big deal. I was hanging out with other friends. During the course of the night, I noticed some shady things like secluding themselves from the group conversation, paying me no attention, talking secretively to each other at close range, etc. After the bars closed, I drove Barb back to her parents' house and said goodnight, but felt like something was off all night, so I went to Wawa and got some food and circled back to the apartment complex to play private investigator. I dropped her off around 2:15 a.m. and around 3:05 a.m. I see the unmistakable 2004 Audi S4 with electric blue paint and black wheels making its way towards her apartment. Ricky parks out front and waits. Meanwhile, I am about 100 feet away to his left having heart palpitations, and a minute later out walks Barb in a new outfit and happily strolling to his car. That's when I threw it in reverse, switched on my high beams, and floored it directly towards Ricky's driver's side door to announce my presence. Neither of them knew how to react. Obviously, but their excuse was that they both just needed someone to talk to and I have nothing to worry about. Well, that didn't go over well. Ricky was told to duck off back to his mom's basement and I decided to sleep over at Barb's to ensure he didn't show up again. It took a few weeks to reconcile with Ricky, but they both assured me over and over that I had nothing to worry about going forward. Well, apparently I did, mother duckers. My only advice to you: find the strength to speak up if you're feeling uneasy about something your significant other is doing on their end. If you let everything that bothers you slide and they're the type of shitbird who you suspect of cheating, they'll find ways to take advantage of that lack of accountability. Honestly, you're much better off being thoughtful and direct when communicating with your so than holding back your concerns about questionable behavior. You're worth it, and if you uncover infidelity or something related, you'll be so thankful for confronting your so and taking appropriate action instead of finding out 5 years from now. Good luck and sorry this was so long. Absolutely no judgment, cause I have no idea how I would have handled this, but since everything was paid for and you couldn't get your money back, did it occur to you to say, yeah, okay, I'll go ahead with the wedding? Then, at the altar, when the officiant asks if anyone has any objections, you step forward, face the assembly and begin a prepared speech. Yeah, actually, I'll have to object to marrying Barb because 2 nights ago, with Buddy as my witness, I found Barb straddled on top of my longtime friend Ricky, seated right over there in the second row with a blue suit, in my and Barb's new apartment. Since I paid $20,000 for the whole wedding cause Barb and her parents have no money, and it's completely non-refundable, I'd like to invite everyone except Barb's parents, who arrived on the scene and actually tried to convince me to overlook this and follow through on marrying their cheating daughter, Ricky, and anyone else sympathetic to Barb, her parents, and Ricky, to my wedding rejection for a great meal, drinks and music. I can't say I'll be in a great mood, but let's party. And ladies, I am single if you'd like to, try to cheer me up. Mic drop. I know this would be a reach, but would have been epic and legendary in the minds of all who were there and beyond. Your buddy could have been on the ready videoing the whole thing. My best man and groomsman posited this idea the next day, but I had already cancelled and publicly shamed my ex-fiancé Ricky on social media and called people set to fly in so they could cancel their travel plans. I did, however, strongly consider going solo on honeymoon cruise that was paid in full. Didn't happen though. I just took the week off to stay at home and recover from the whole mess. Holy shit, dude, I just read your story after you commented on mine. I am definitely glad you are doing better, but I am so sorry that happened. That is insanely ducked up. The duck did they think was gonna happen? How did they not think you would walk in and catch them? What a cunt. And what a duckin' dick. Granted, they were both hammered and probably figured I wouldn't be back so quickly, but it's a good thing their stupidity allowed me to walk in on it rather than coming back and they're acting as if nothing happened. Close call. What a tough story. Fiancé and friend acting like pos and to then lose your job 2 months later plus the next GF was crazy. You have great strength to handle all of what has happened to you. 2 questions. 1. Did Barb ever try to explain her actions or act remorseful? 2. I am assuming that Ricky never called the cops or pressed charges, correct? She apologized for a couple weeks, but I cut her off after I found someone to sublet our apartment about a month after the incident. The only explanation I received was I was drunk or we were totally blackout drunk. Neither were comforting, so I moved on. He did not call the cops, partly because he felt horrible about the situation and knew he deserved it. About 2 years ago he called me and we talked for 2 hours or so, and ultimately I decided to forgive him. We don't hang out anymore, but I've seen him a dozen times randomly the last couple years. No hard feelings. Too bad you didn't lay a couple more snacks in Ricky and her dad when he walked in. Well done, mate. I wish you could have sued her for back pay and wedding expenses. So many stories on here are about girls take their cheating men back. It's nice to see someone have a zero-tolerance policy for BS. Any update on the cheaters? Please tell me they got together and then he cheated on her.